Today's video is inspired by a recent comment I read left by a viewer called Beautiful Stars, who, describing the current dating scene, explained that it's difficult to meet a potential partner who is willing to live without pets. Almost impossible, in fact. This got me thinking about many similar comments I received in the past, in which people complained about dating apps and websites that seem to be filled with dog fanatics who include dogs in their profile pictures and stipulate that anyone who contacts them must love dogs. There was a time when goodness was something one did, a way of living, not a way of appearing. In religious societies, virtue was proven through devotion and service. In civic life, it was measured by responsibility, restraint, and integrity. Today, virtue is not practiced, but performed. And nowhere is this transformation more visible than in the strange moral theater of the modern dating profile. Scroll through any dating app, and you'll find an endless repetition of a single trope: the smiling face beside a dog, or the line that reads, "Must love dogs." At first glance, it seems harmless, even charming. But this cultural detail reveals something profound about how moral and emotional identity now function in the digital age. For most of history, people didn't need to prove they were good. They were judged through participation in systems of meaning larger than themselves, such as religion, family, and community. But as those frameworks eroded, moral identity became untethered from action and reattached to presentation. We began to display goodness through aesthetic cues, gestures that feel virtuous without requiring moral labor. The self became a curated performance, optimized for legibility, not truth. In that vacuum, the dog emerged as a perfect vessel for moral display. To love dogs is to signal kindness, warmth, emotional intelligence, all the virtues that modern culture prizes, but no longer knows how to cultivate. It's a moral shorthand. It's a way to appear empathic without confronting the complexity of empathy itself. And because the dog is uncontroversial, neither political nor religious, it offers a universal sign of supposed goodness. But here lies the contradiction. The very act that now symbolizes moral virtue is, in practice, harmful, both ethically and ecologically. Dog ownership, marketed as compassion, depends on captivity, control, and commodification. It imperils wildlife, contributes to environmental degradation through pet food production and waste, and endangers communities through attacks and chronic noise pollution, aka barking. In claiming to represent love and responsibility, it conceals cruelty, exploitation, and risk. The image of moral purity rests upon a foundation of real harm. This inversion, virtue as image and harm as virtue, is made possible by the structure of digital communication itself. On platforms built for speed and visibility, nuance collapses. Complexity cannot compete with imagery. And so, moral substance is replaced by moral shorthand, a flattened moral economy in which what matters is not what we are, but what can be seen. The same logic governs cosmetic culture. Botox, veneers, fillers, all perform the same social function as the dog photo. They create legibility. They make the self instantly interpretable, conforming to aesthetic codes of desirability and virtue. We have become a civilization of curated sincerity, obsessed with the performance of authenticity, even as we drift further from the real. In this new moral order, the self is no longer a private interior life, but a public performance. To exist socially is to be seen. To be seen is to be simplified. What once took years of character to establish can now be simulated in a single image. The result is a collective psychosis of visibility, a world where we must look kind rather than be kind, look empathic rather than act ethically. This is why sincerity feels dangerous. True authenticity is ambiguous, slow to reveal, and difficult to package. In a culture that rewards clarity of signal over depth of being, ambiguity becomes a liability. Thus, people perform the image of the good person instead. Gentle, animal-loving, virtuous, while the substance of goodness withers beneath the surface. The remedy is not to abandon symbols, but to restore the balance between symbol and substance. We can begin by recognizing that real virtue is incompatible with performance. Goodness requires practice, not display. We can re-establish moral practice by grounding ethics in behavior rather than imagery. To reclaim sincerity, we must accept that authenticity is rarely photogenic. It involves contradiction, uncertainty, and privacy, qualities that resist the logic of platforms. We can resist moral simplification by questioning the equivalence of sentiment and goodness. Loving an animal does not make one ethical. It only makes one appear so. And finally, we can cultivate privacy, the last refuge of truth in an age of performance. What is not performed remains real. Human beings have always needed symbols to make virtue visible. But when the symbol replaces the substance, morality collapses into image. The dog, the filter, the filler. Each is a fragment of the same illusion, that appearance is enough, and that goodness can be shown rather than lived. The cost of this illusion is sincerity itself. We have learned to signal virtue so effectively that we've forgotten how to practice it. And perhaps that is the deepest irony of all. We are a culture that worships authenticity while running entirely on artifice. The future is pet-free.